Thank you. This is, thank you, Dallas. This is a large, loud, and raucous crowd. And let me just thank Lauren Tenney and Farouk Shamsi and Domingo Garcia and Marissa Marquez and the Jesse Fry Band. And let me also thank somebody who was been a friend of mine for decades, your very own Jim Hightower. Well, it looks to me, as I look around this huge, that is the power of Saturday Night Live. What can you do? It looks like Dallas is ready for a political revolution. And let me tell you, so are a lot of people all across our great country. We began this campaign 10 months ago. We were at about 3% in the polls. We had no money, we had no political organization, and actually outside of Vermont, nobody knew who we were. Other than that, we were in pretty good shape. And we were running against a candidate who is one of the best known people in America, somebody who had run in 2008, and somebody who has a very powerful political organization and the support of the entire political establishment in the Democratic Party. But it turns out that it is one thing to have the support of the establishment. It is another thing to have the support of the people. And a funny thing happened over the last 10 months, and that is we started off in Iowa where we were 50 points behind when we began. We ended up in a virtual tie. We started off in New Hampshire. We were 30 points behind and we won. We started off in Nevada way down, ended up losing by 5 points. We'll see what happens in South Carolina. And then we're here on Tuesday in Texas. And as you all know, Texas will be electing more delegates than any other state on Tuesday. And as I look around, we had a great rally in Austin this morning. This is just fantastic. So I think we have a surprise coming for some people on Tuesday. You know, what Jim Hightower was saying is absolutely right. Democracy is not a football game. It is not a spectator sport. All of you are enormously powerful people if you choose to use your power. And as Jim was saying, what we are attempting to do in this campaign is not only elect the president, that's obvious, but to do something even more important, and that is to revitalize American democracy, to create a situation where working class people and low income people and young people come together and demand that we have a government which represents all of us. And I don't have to tell anybody here that that is not the case today. In Washington, the Congress is much more interested in representing wealthy and powerful campaign contributors than the needs of ordinary Americans. And that is turning that around, creating a democracy in which the needs and the pain of the American people are heard. That is precisely what this campaign is about. And the reason that we are doing as well as we are is because we're doing something very radical and unusual. We are telling the truth. And the reality is that the truth is not always pleasant to hear. But if we are to go forward, and if we are to transform this country, it is important that we, in fact, talk about the reality of what's going on. And what is going on in America today is we have a corrupt campaign finance system in which billionaires are trying to buy elections. And that is why together we are going to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And why we are going to move toward public funding of elections. Now here is what this campaign is about, is thinking big, not small, thinking outside of the box. Here's one idea I want you to appreciate. Today in America, we have one of the lowest voter turnout rates of any major country on earth. And there are reasons for that. I understand the reasons. A lot of working people who are hurting can barely take care of their families. They look to Washington and they don't see anybody there paying attention to their needs. But what I want to do, with your help, is create a nation in which we have a vibrant democracy and one of the highest voter turnout rates, not one of the lowest. And by the way, when we do that, and as we do that, we are going to take on all of those governors and all of those legislatures who are trying to suppress the vote in the United States. Now, in a democracy, people can disagree. But what a governor or a legislature cannot do is try to make it harder for people to vote because they may vote against you. That is political cowardice, and I say to all of those governors and all of those legislators, if you don't have the guts to participate in a free and fair election, get another job, get out of politics. But it's not just a corrupt campaign finance system and a democracy that is not working as well as it must. It is also a rigged economy. It is an economy where the average person in Texas or Vermont is working longer hours for lower wages, while almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. So you want to hear a radical idea? All right, together we are going to create an economy that works for working families and the middle class, not just the 1%. But it is not just a corrupt campaign finance system and a rigged economy. It's more than that. It is a broken criminal justice system. In America, we should not be having more people in jail than any other country on earth. And the numbers, the people who are in jail are disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. So together, we are going to bring about major reforms in this broken criminal justice system. Now, I think the reason that our campaign is doing so well and has so much momentum is that we are listening to the American people, not wealthy campaign donors. And I go around the country, and this is what I hear. I hear from workers who say, Bernie, I can't make it on $8, $9, or $10 an hour. And you could do the arithmetic as well as I. Nobody can make it on $8, $9, $10 an hour for yourself, but certainly not to raise a family. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. And together we are going to raise that minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. What America should be about is that if you work 40 or 50 hours a week, you do not live in poverty. And I know that every man in this room will stand with the women and fight for pay equity for women workers. And as we go around the country and as we listen to the women, what they are saying is, we do not want the government to control our bodies. You know, it is, I know I will not shock anybody here to tell you that in politics there's a lot of hypocrisy. I know you're all shocked to hear that. But this one really is at the highest levels of hypocrisy. You got Republicans running all over the country. They hate the government. They want to get the government out of our lives. They want to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and veteran states. They hate the government. Except when it comes to the right of a woman to make an important decision in her life, then they want the government to make that decision. That, brothers and sisters, is hypocrisy at the highest level. As we go around this country, we listen to senior citizens and disabled veterans. And what the seniors and disabled vets tell us is they cannot make it on $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. And the truth is that nobody can make it on $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. Now, my Republican colleagues, they think that we should cut Social Security benefits. Well, I've got some bad news for them. Not only are we not going to cut Social Security benefits, we're going to expand Social Security benefits. And as we go around the country, we listen and talk to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they are asking why it is that when we turn on a TV, we see videos of unarmed African Americans being killed by police officers. And they ask why it is that when blacks and whites use marijuana at about equal levels, why does it turn out that blacks are 4 times more likely to be arrested for possession of marijuana than whites? And they ask why it is that in many of their communities, the police departments look like occupying armies. Now, I am a former mayor of the largest city in Vermont, and I've worked with police there for many years. Vast majority of police officers are honest and hardworking. But, that's right, and it's a very difficult job, and it's not an easy job to be a cop today. But when a police officer, like any other public official, breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. And our campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. And what they are saying is they are working really, really hard, often at very low-wage jobs. They are tired of living in the shadows. They are tired of being afraid that their families can be torn apart. They want, and I want, comprehensive immigration reform. And a path toward citizenship. And I agree. And if the Congress does not do its job and pass comprehensive immigration reform, as President of the United States, I will use all of the executive authority in my power. My father came to this country at the age of 17 as an immigrant. I know a little bit about the immigrant experience. Our job is to unite families, not divide families. Now, I want to take a minute as we talk about this campaign to just highlight some of the differences that exist between myself and Secretary Clinton. I am very proud to come before you and tell you that I do not have a super PAC. I do not represent Wall Street or corporate America or the billionaire class. We do not want their money, don't need their money. Now, Secretary Clinton has raised many millions of dollars from Wall Street and the drug companies. And like every elected official who raises a lot of money, she says, well, it's not going to influence me. But I want everybody to ask themselves a very simple question. Why are... Hold on. You could say a whole lot about Wall Street, and I will, but these guys may be operating illegally, they may be reckless, they may be greedy, but they are not dumb. All right? So you have to ask yourselves, as do the American people, why is it that Wall Street pours millions and millions of dollars into the Clinton campaign? And second of all, it seems to me that if you're going to give speeches behind closed doors, to Wall Street groups like Goldman Sachs, and if you get paid, and if you're going to get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that speech, it must be a great speech, and you want to share it with the American people. Secretary Clinton said she will make her transcripts available if others make their transcripts available. I am the other. I'm making my transcripts available. Their honor. Now, the majors, all of you know, foreign policy is a very important part of what a president does and what Congress does. The most important foreign policy decision to have been made in this country for many, many years regarded the war in Iraq. Now, I was in the House representing Vermont in 2002. I listened very carefully, because when you're dealing with issues of war and peace, all members of Congress listen carefully, because they know that it'll be kids in their own state going off and maybe not coming back. So I listened very carefully to what Bush had to say, to what Cheney had to say, what Rumsfeld had to say. I did not believe them. I led the opposition to going to war. And it gives me no pleasure to tell you that if you go to my website, BernieSanders.com, read what I said in 2002 about the fact that it's easy to overthrow a tyrant like Saddam Hussein. It is a lot harder to predict what will happen the day after. And what happened the day after, as all of you know, and is happening today, has been an absolute disaster. Hillary Clinton heard the same evidence that I did. She voted for that war. Now, when we talk about why the middle class in America has been disappearing for 30 years, why so many working class people have fallen into poverty, there are a number of reasons, but one of those reasons is our disastrous trade policies. Now, The media does not really talk about trade. They're not interested in trade, and it's not a sexy issue, but it is a very important issue. When I was elected to the Congress in 1990, shortly after, I helped lead the effort against NAFTA. And I went to, and by the way, NAFTA has been a disaster not only for workers in the United States, but for workers in Mexico as well. And this I will never forget. I went on a trip to the Maquiladora area in Mexico, and that's a special zone where they give tax breaks to corporations who move in that area. And I went and I visited many of these brand new, beautiful, state-of-the-art factories. And then I went to visit the workers. And I wish I could tell you that I went to visit them in their homes, but they did not have homes. They were living literally, the workers that I saw, in cardboard shacks, making then 25 cents an hour. Truth is that since 2001, we have lost 60,000 factories in America and millions of decent paying jobs because corporate America has said, why do I want to reinvest in Texas or Vermont in America when I can go to some cheap labor country abroad and then bring my product back to the United States? I have helped lead the effort against all of these disastrous trade policies. Secretary Clinton supported NAFTA, supported permanent normal trade relations with China. She was wrong, I was right on those trade issues. Now, when we talk about why the American people are angry and why there is so much frustration in this country, it has a lot to do with the fact that the American people look out. They are working longer hours for low wages, and what they are seeing is that 58% of all new income generated in America is going to the top 1%. They are looking out and they see that the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. And they see the 20 wealthiest families in this country now owning more wealth than the bottom 50%. That is 150 million Americans. Now, I want to tell you a story about what the rigged economy means. Turns out that the wealthiest family in this country is the Walton family of Walmart. They own, as one family, more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. One family. Now, this is what a rigged economy is about. Walmart pays wages that are so low that many of their employees are on Medicaid, food stamps, or subsidized housing. Who do you think is paying for that Medicaid, food stamps, and subsidized housing? What a rigged economy is about is when the middle class and working families subsidize the wealthiest family in this country because the wages they pay to their workers are too low. You know, a lot of my Republican colleagues talk about welfare abuse. Turns out the major welfare abuser is the Walton family. And I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. when we talk about our economy, every month you'll see in the front pages of the paper a report from the federal government about official unemployment, which is now nationally 5%. Does anybody here believe that real unemployment in America is 5%? Well, you're right, it is not. Real unemployment is close to 10% if you include people working part-time and people who have given up looking for work. And here's something even worse, and that is the crisis in youth unemployment. Kids graduating high school today, between 17 and 20, kids are white, 33% real unemployment. Latino, 36%. African American, 51%. And if anyone here thinks that there is not a direct correlation between very high youth unemployment and the fact that we have more people in jail, 2.2 million people, than any other country, you would be mistaken. So here is another radical idea. You ready for another one? Together, we are going to be very, very smart. And we are going to invest in education and jobs. We are going to be investing in education and jobs for our young people, not jails and incarceration. So thinking big and out of the box says no. In America, we're not going to see millions of people rot away in jails. We are going to create the best educated workforce in the world. And if real unemployment is close to 10% and youth unemployment is off the charts, it seems to me to be a no-brainer that we have to create a massive federal jobs program to put our people back to work. We should be hiring teachers, not firing teachers. We need many, many hundreds of thousands of well-educated, well-trained people to work in childcare and in pre-K. A couple of days ago, I was in Flint, Michigan. You all know what's going on in Flint, Michigan. And I talked to some of the people in Flint. We had a town meeting. What I heard is literally unbelievable. It is unbelievable to hear about what is going on in an important American city in the year 2016. As I heard that discussion, what I really felt is this America? Is this the United States of America, or is this some fourth world country? We are looking at a water system which is poisoned. We are looking at a situation where children's intellectual development has been impacted, and the stories that I heard were so horrific, I don't even want to repeat them to you. I mean, they're really beyond painful about what parents are seeing in their own children. We need to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure all over America. And that means our water systems, and I understand there are places here in southern Texas where people don't even have fresh water or even electricity. We have got to rebuild our roads and bridges and wastewater plants. We should have the best rail system in the world. No more Katrinas. We have to rebuild our levees and our dams. And when we do that, we create 13 million good-paying jobs. Now when I talk about a rigged economy, and I talk about a corrupt campaign finance system, and when I talk about a broken criminal justice system, it all comes down to one story I want to tell you briefly. Last month, one of the large financial institutions in our country, Goldman Sachs. You know about Goldman Sachs. All right. They paid a $5 billion settlement to the United States government. $5 billion. Now, why did they pay that settlement? They paid that settlement because they were selling before the financial crisis worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans. So they were ripping off, they were running a fraudulent operation, and they were ripping off the American people. They paid a $5 billion fine for running a fraudulent, crooked operation. Point one. Point number two, I want to talk to you about political power and what that's about. Goldman Sachs, along with many other financial institutions, has contributed many, many millions of dollars to political candidates and also provided kind of lucrative speaking fees as well. That's political power. Point number three is what we call the revolving door. And what the revolving door means is that people come from Wall Street, they go to work for the government, and then they go back to Wall Street. In the last 20 years or so, Goldman Sachs alone has provided 2 secretaries of the Treasury and dozens of other high-ranking government officials. Point number 4 to this story, and maybe the one that makes the American people the angriest. If a person is picked up in Texas today with marijuana, that person will have a criminal record for his or her entire life. You got a criminal record for possession of marijuana, but if you are an executive on Wall Street and your greed and illegal behavior destroys the American economy and wrecks the lives of millions of people, you don't get a criminal record, you get a salary increase. We are together. What America is about, what we read in the school books, is equal justice under the law. And what that means is if you're poor, you break the law, you pay the price. You're rich, you break the law, you pay the price. We don't have that right now. So together, we are going to bring back justice to a broken criminal justice system. Now, all of you know that we live in a very competitive global economy, and if we are going to do well, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. And all of us know that education and learning is what it means to be human. That's what we want to do. It's a good thing. And yet today, as we look around our country, we find that there are hundreds of thousands of bright and qualified young people who want to go to college but can't go to college for one reason. Their families lack the money. Now that is not only unfair to those young people, it is unfair to the future of America, because we don't know how many scientists and engineers and doctors. 50 or 60 years ago, if you had a high school degree, you were doing pretty good, and you can go out and get in most cases, a good job in the economy. Today, in many ways, a college degree is the equivalent of a high school degree 50 years ago. So what that means to me is that when we talk about public education in America, free public education, it shouldn't simply be first grade through 12th grade. It should mean that we have free tuition at public colleges and universities all over America. Now, that is not a radical idea. That's a common sense idea. That's an idea that exists today in Germany. It exists in Scandinavia. It exists in other countries around the world. And I'll tell you why this idea and this concept is so important. There are kids I know in Texas right now and in Vermont, kids who are in the 4th grade and in the 6th grade. Their mom never went to college. Their dad never went to college. They don't have any money. And the idea in their own minds that they could ever go to college is as relevant as whether or not they're going to go to the moon. They don't think it is possible. What we have got to do as a nation is say to all of those children, all of those parents, all of those teachers, that if that kid studies hard in school, does well in school, that kid will go to college regardless of the income of that family. And when we talk about higher education, it's also important to talk about another crisis we face, and that is that millions of people are being crushed with oppressive levels of student debt. Anybody here with student debt? All right, I have talked to people who are young and people who are not so young. We're talking people with folks with 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, 45, 80,000. I mean, I talked to a woman in Vermont. She became a doctor, $300,000 in debt. Woman in Iowa became a dentist, which we need. We need a lot of dentists, $400,000 in debt. Talked to a guy in Nevada a few months ago. Guy's 55 years of age. He has been paying his student debt for 25 years. He is more in debt today than he was when he took the damn debt out in the first place. That's right. All right. Our view has got to be that punishing people for getting an education is crazy. We want to encourage people to get an education, not punish them, and that is why we have legislation in that will substantially reduce the level of student debt. Now, people say to me, well, Bernie, you know, that's nice. You want to give free tuition, public colleges and university, you want to lower student debt. It's an expensive proposition. They're right, it is. And this is what I say in response. Number one, everybody here should know that over the last 30 years, there has been a massive redistribution of wealth in this country from working families to the top 1/10 of 1%. You know, I get criticized every day for thinking too big, but I didn't hear too many of the establishment people saying, hey, what's going on? Trillions of dollars going from working families to the top 1/10 of 1%. But somehow when you want to bring that money back to the working families of this country, that's a terrible idea. I disagree. So you know how we're going to pay to make public colleges and universities tuition-free and lower student debt? We're going to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. When Wall Street's illegal behavior nearly destroyed our economy, they went begging the Congress for a bailout. Now it is Wall Street's turn to help the middle class of this country. Now, I know that here in Texas, your senators and your governor disagree. Will disagree with me when I say the following, and that is that as a member of the Senate Environmental Committee and the Senate Energy Committee, I have talked to scientists all over this world. And what they say almost unanimously is that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. Now, what the scientists also tell us is that if we do not get our act together in a short period of time, by the end of this century, this planet Earth, our only planet, could be 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. And that means more drought, more floods, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the ocean, the destruction of our oceans, more rising sea levels, flooding coastal regions, and it also means more international conflict as people fight over limited natural resources. Now, it seems to me, as the grandfather of 7 beautiful grandchildren, and my 4 kids are okay as well, but it's really the grandchildren, that we together, for future generations, for all of our kids and our grandchildren, and all those that come after us, we have a moral responsibility to make sure that the planet we leave our kids and grandchildren is healthy and habitable. Now, I want to connect some dots here and tell you how it happens. And I want you to think about this. How does it happen that not one Republican candidate for president, or very few Republicans, a few, but not many, will say to you or to the American people what virtually the entire scientific community is saying? Climate change is real. All right, this is a smart group of people. You hit it already. And what it comes down to, this is just one example of many of what a corrupt campaign finance system is about. Because if a Republican candidate for president came before you and said, well, you know, I talked to the scientists, I've read the literature, we got a serious problem, we got to do something about it, on that day, that candidate would lose his funding from the Koch brothers, from the fossil fuel industry. So I say to those Republicans, stop worrying about your campaign contributions, worry about the future of this planet. Now, during the course of this campaign, I get criticized quite often, and one area that I have been criticized is the following. The United States is the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people. And I have been criticized for saying the following, and let me say it to you as clearly as I can. I believe that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. Now, the Affordable Care Act has done some good things. We've gotten rid of this disastrous pre-existing condition. 17 million more Americans now have health insurance, and we've done away with discrimination against women who were forced to pay higher premiums because they were women. But despite those gains, 29 million people in America still have zero health insurance. Many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high co-payments. And what that means, if you have a high deductible and you get sick and you don't have much money, you know what happens? You don't go to the doctor, which is pretty crazy because you're only going to get sicker. And then on top of that, we are being ripped off big time by the drug companies who are charging us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. One out of 5 Americans, if you can believe it, cannot afford to purchase the prescription drugs their doctors prescribe. Talk about crazy. All right. Meanwhile, after all of that, we spend almost 3 times more than the British, who have universal health care, 50% more than the French, far more than the Canadians. I think the time is now for this country to move toward a Medicare for all health care program. Now, what this campaign is about between Republicans and me is a very, very different vision for America. Something like that. Now, Donald Trump, some of you may have heard of. You have heard of Donald Trump. So let me say a couple of things. You know, polls go up and polls go down, and we shouldn't put too much emphasis on polls. But here's the good news. Almost all of the polls that I have seen have us defeating Donald Trump. And sometimes in these polls, we beat them by double digits. And let me tell you some, not all, but some of the reasons that we will defeat Trump if he is the nominee. Okay? We will win because the American people do not agree with Trump that we should give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the top 0.2%. We will win because the American people do not agree with Trump that we should keep a minimum wage, a starvation wage of $7.25 an hour. We will defeat Trump because he is wrong and the American people do not agree that wages in America are too high. They're too low, not too high. Now, all of you know that Donald Trump is the greatest of everything, including one of the great scientists of our time. And as a brilliant scientist who has studied climate change, he has concluded that climate change is a hoax created by the Chinese. Now, I was shocked. I was honestly shocked to hear that because I would have thought that he believed that climate change was a hoax created by the Mexicans or the Muslims. Why the Chinese? I don't know. We will defeat Trump because the American people do not want a president who insults Mexicans, Muslims, who insults women, African Americans, who insults veterans, and basically insults anybody who is not like Donald Trump. Thank God most of us are not like Donald Trump. We will win because our campaign is bringing people together, not dividing them. We will win because community trumps selfishness. And most importantly, love trumps hatred. Now, this campaign is not just about electing a president. It is about transforming America. It is about people being engaged in the political process in a way that we have not seen for a long time. All right. On Tuesday, there is an important election, a very important election here in Texas. I hope very much that not only will all of you come out and vote, you'll bring your family, your friends, your uncles, your aunts. Texas can help lead this country forward in the political revolution. Thank you all very much.